by default, humans are diverse. So we sometimes get tickled when we hear people say like, oh, it's a diverse group of people, or that person's diverse. Well, we're all diverse. Like, so what's interesting is how that word, though, I've watched in the last 20 years, and I know Dr. Adai and Zarita have too, when you hear the word diversity or you hear diversity, equity, inclusion, there might be somewhat like an immediate eye roll situation, like, okay, here we go. You know, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, a lot of misperceptions about what we're talking about, but the way all of this started at one time was really focused on compliance. And this was just what not to do in the workplace. So all of these categories, when I first started in this work, this is how I got started, is organizations would have me come in and say, tell everybody not to do these things. You know, just not to say this, not to say that. And eventually I got to a place where I'm like, this is really negative. It's all just negative. It's like about how not to be to people when we're not really talking about how to be to people, you know, or how to be human to others and how to really respect that. So whether you use the term diversity or you use the term difference, it doesn't matter to us, but it's kind of all the same thing. So for us, when we're talking about people differences or diversity, we're talking about everything on this list. Of course, we're talking about race and ethnicity. We have whole content, curriculum areas, panel discussions, everything that are focused on race and ethnicity. And we also have those on gender. And that's often what people are thinking about when they hear diversity. They immediately go to like, okay, that we're talking about race and gender, maybe a few other things, you know, maybe sometimes sexual orientation or other areas. But we're also talking about age differences, cultural differences, language differences, whether you're a veteran, your health status, your family status. Some of you may be single parents, some of you may be caregiving for others. That impacts your experience at work. It impacts a lot of things around you. So to us, that's also diversity. That's also difference. That's also a factor in inclusion. I have spent chunks of my life researching economic inequality, social class. I think that's a huge component of diversity. How much money you have or how much money you don't have makes a damn big difference in your life. And so that's a component of diversity for us. So all of these areas are what we're gonna kind of talk about today, and we only have an hour and a half, so we can't take a deep dive into each one of them, but to us, this is what we're talking about, and many of these areas are invisible. We get so used to looking at the visible, we make assumptions about people based on what we see. We all do it. But there's so much that you can't see about a person's experience, and we can never know that unless A, we ask them or they share it with us, or we build up enough trust and rapport for them to share that with us. But keeping in mind that there's so much beneath the surface in many ways.